The great Ace Attorney is not Ace Attorney, with an unlocalized game that has long garnered excitement finally reaching our shores. There's been a natural expectation that it should follow the usual status quo. While the title may say otherwise, this game is more interested in breaking Ace Attorney conventions than following them. The very first thing that was decided for Shu Takumi's pet project was to have a storyline that spans a trilogy that breadcrumbs its clues along the way. You can see this from this behind the vaults entry in your very own copy of the game, that this point was decided even before coming up with the setting of Victorian England. This is why many say the first game has an unsatisfying conclusion, and now it is sold to us as a duology, as that's how far he was able to get under Capcom as a company. With the addition of Sherlock Holmes, the long maligned investigation sections were spiced up with the dance of deduction system, which is always a treat to hanker for when you start investigations. But here's where expectations diverge, and I must warn you of incoming spoilers for both games in this series. The most apparent departure in the court system is the jury, and I've seen people complain about their pointless tangents and using them to string the case forward as a form of irrelevant logic. But however, you have to think that it's rather realistic, as common folk would still do this even today with irrelevant tangents. This game, you have to keep in mind, is more interested in selling you its world and its cast than anything else in the game, even if there's a compelling mystery to follow behind it all. And it is the time that this game takes to smell the roses and embellish this more unknown world to us that some find drawn out and long. While Spirit of Justice is another entry that explores a different country whose culture gets explained to us much more quickly, this game prefers to take its time explaining the mood, transportation, political tensions, and the technology of this world. The world building is much more packed than usual, and the reason it has to be is that this is a long removed time from when any of us existed. And before a commenter tells me they are 121 years old. And so, to explore this world, it takes time, but it does whatever it wants to be free of the usual Ace Attorney formula. Case 2 is just one long investigation section just to introduce the pivotal figure Sherlock Holmes. In the second game, while you may be expecting to head into a second trial, Case 4 instead chooses to end immediately after an investigation section just to leave you standing at a cliffhanger. But it also uses world building to its advantage, as I'll let Nico B explain how they do it in the first case of the second game.
Oh my god, what an awesome way to start. Holy shit. We're controlling Suzuto. We're back in Japan. We're seeing some recurring characters we saw from the first case, and also Suseki is back. We face off once again against Samurai Max Payne. And he's gotten a character arc and he's holding a grudge. Giselle Brett's also back. The lady wouldn't get any answers on, and she's dead now. This is deriving it from the previous game, with some characters from the previous game, as well as characters from literally the first case that I had criticisms against. But my sort of thought process, right? Like, I think this is great. I think this is perfect here, how they're doing it. So even if it ends up being long, I don't mind. However, this one's making the perfect decision for a sequel, what a sequel should do, where it is drawing upon the things from the previous game and now going to be delving deeper. And it's something that we just don't see ever in Ace Attorney games, because each Ace Attorney game is essentially made to be its own title, right? Like, you don't really have to play the previous games to get what's going on, because the game will explain who each of these characters are, what they're doing here, right at the start, you know? This one definitely feels like, yeah, they're explaining it a bit, but you're definitely gonna want to play the previous game first, all right? And I like that. I wish that Capcom did that more often with Ace Attorney.
So, being free of the usual Ace Attorney shackles allows it to see what new horizons this series can breach and explore. However, we are missing a very crucial detective here. Remember, this game does not want to be an Ace Attorney game. What it wants to be is an interpretation of the famed Sherlock Holmes novels. As a natural detective genre buff, Shu Takumi was a big Sherlock Holmes fan and wanted to bring that into his games as well. This point can be made no clearer with the storybook opening to every single case and the fact that the original novels sorta exist being made up by Iris Wilson, while Holmes comes across as a very different person from what those books portray. Do you see any of these case titles with turnabout in them? No? Good. They're all chapters instead of episodes because it's meant to be one long Sherlock Holmes novel, which is why the duology book ends on the storybook chapter being closed once and for all. I've seen quite a few people say that this game has been turbulent because it's a big change from the usual Ace Attorney formula, and the same people are asking for a new cast and change to the current day modern Ace Attorney formula, which is kind of frustrating, to be honest. Does this duology have flaws? Certainly, but we should not try to stifle change and innovation just because it's not the status quo. I'd rather these games be judged on its own merits and what it achieves with its stellar cast and great world building. While there are some changes that this series desperately needs to catch up on, I'm glad that this great duology has finally surfaced to a global audience, and I'd even welcome a sequel just to cap off this intricately woven trilogy. Thank you for watching, and I hope you subscribe for more Ace Attorney content and other videos on games that interest me. Thank you.